Hello, Trojan fans. Welcome to another edition of the Peristyle Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Abraham, publisher of USCFootball.com, joined alongside my good friend, Connor Morrissette. You can call him Triple Double, whatever you want. Connor, how you doing today, sir?
Doing well, Ryan. Good to be here. The season is here. We're going to be Wednesday at 1 o'clock every week now for the Peristyle Podcast, now that the season's here, so great to be with you.
Great to be with you, too. Little under the weather yesterday. I think it was like maybe a little 24-hour bug or something. But I'm back. I'm ready. Ready to go. Got to talk USC's opener against the Missouri State Bears. Some of the news and notes from USC football camp, these practices the last week, and what Lincoln Riley said on Trojans Live, how the offensive line is shaping up, a few injuries, position battles. We're going to get to all of that stuff. If you have questions or comments, like Connor said, we're going to keep doing the show Wednesdays at 1 during the season. And if you have questions for the show, you can email us, podcast@uscfootball.com, or call or text us at 424-254-9141. We appreciate that. We are also live on YouTube and Facebook. I've got some of your comments here. I'm seeing them right now. If you have questions, you can put question there, and we'll answer your questions at the end of the show. Mark is in the chat right now saying hello. He likes to do that. Hello, Ryan, a triple double. Hello, Mark. Hello,
hey, Mark.
Everyone. Yeah, everyone else, Trojan Fight says, fight on, guys. Everybody is in there. We appreciate you jumping into the chat and saying hello. We like to make this interactive when we're doing the show live and putting it on YouTube and Facebook. So thanks for doing that. Let's hear from the Facebook people. I know there's a lot of YouTube people, but get some Facebook members in the chat as well. You can also leave us a 5-star rating on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Those are the two most popular ways that people listen to the podcast. And I don't think, we have a review, a 5-star review from Mark, 97 in Nevada. He says, Helium Boys season. So, yes, the Helium Boys are back also. He says, so happy to see the Helium Boys return. Chris needs to watch the movie Hardball. We'll pass that along, Mark. But, yeah, thanks for leaving 5-star reviews there. On Spotify, you can't leave a review, but you can actually leave comments on each one of the episodes. So if you're listening on Spotify, leave us a comment about this episode. Let us know what you think, and we appreciate that. We also appreciate our longtime sponsor, Trader Joe's. Yeah. How does a little mom and pop show like this get a big sponsor like Trader Joe's? I don't know, but they like sponsoring us. We like that they sponsor us. They're awesome. I was going to go in yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to because I wasn't feeling good, Connor. So I'm going to go later this evening and go kind of stock up for, got to get ready for the weekend. And there's some big games this weekend. We'll be at the Coliseum later in the day, but get to watch like Texas, Ohio State early on. But I got to get into Trader Joe's and stock up on some of the necessities you need to, watch that game. Maybe I'll make a little breakfast or something, breakfast burrito at home to watch that Texas Ohio State game, and then probably head into the Coliseum after that.
Absolutely. That's my plan as well. Maybe get some of those frozen hash browns at Trader Joe's and rip them apart, throw them in the burrito. That sounds great to me. Too bad we don't live closer. I'd come over to your place. You're a better cook than I am.
No, I'm sure you do great. That's good. That's a good idea, though. I do have those. You can buy the hash browns, so if you like putting them in a pan and frying them up that way. But I do like the formed. They're sort of like the hash browns you get at like a McDonald's or something. They're like those frozen hash brown patties, and you can heat those up a number of different ways. I've done in the air fryer. But yeah, you could chop those up and put it in a burrito. I think that would be good.
That would be amazing.
Mark 97 says, don't forget to smash that like button. Yeah, if you're watching YouTube, Facebook, like, subscribe, all those things. Smash the like button. We got Michael, Houston, Texas, says, fight on from Houston, Texas. Thanks, Michael. Watching on Facebook. So we got a Facebook person to say hello. We got to say hello to everyone out there, Connor, and we got to say what the heck's going on with the USC offensive line. There was a lot of news that came out this week. We are doing our we had to do our re-rank of all of the USC players, the most important players. We sent it in, and I think Shotgun released 21 to 30 today. But in the re-rank, I made some assumptions, like Jean-Ray Reed was going to be starting at center. I really thought Tobias Raymond was going to be the starter at right tackle, and I thought that Micah Benuelos would be the starter at left guard. And I kind of made my rankings along those lines. Nope, that's not the way it's going. So I don't know if you want to give people an update on the offensive lines. Didn't shape up the way I thought it was going to.
No, I don't think it shaped up the way a lot of people thought. But if you were at that scrimmage, Ryan, that was pretty telling, where the group that started or that will start, that's how they started in the warm-ups, where Kilian O'Connor was named the starting center yesterday. And then on Trojans Live Monday, Lincoln Riley said Elijah Page is our left tackle. Alani Noah is our right guard. Those weren't two big surprises. And then he said Tobias Raymond is certainly going to start, and Justin Tauanuu is a likely starter. And then afterwards he said Micah Benuelos and Kalen Miller, they're right there. So I think we have the five. Page at left tackle. At left guard, it'll be Tobias Raymond, Kilian O'Connor at center, right guard Alani Noah, right tackle, a redshirt freshman like Elijah Page was last year, Justin Tauanuu. So USC is going with a starting five of everyone who was on the team last year, which is pretty interesting. Remember, they took two transfers. DJ Wingfield, ineligible. Jean-Ray Reed, he didn't win the job against Kilian O'Connor. So a group of guys who were here last season, they made the transition from Henson to Hansen now. Zach Hansen's coaching those guys up, and it all starts against Missouri State. The good news is with this new look group, they'll have a couple weeks to get up to speed playing two non-Power 5 teams, or Power 4 teams. So that'll be good, but it's certainly not what we were expecting, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing, but hey, they have some time to ramp up, and let's not say they're not going to be good. Let's give them a chance to show it, but of course I have questions. I think you're crazy if you don't.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you bring in some transfers to bolster the offensive line, and your experienced center that considered going pro didn't win the job against a former walk-on. That's interesting. Obviously, the DJ Wingfield situation, it is what it is. It's not, not being deemed eligible, so he's not able to come in and play. And, you have an opportunity to show like how you've been able to develop some of these other guys. But even, for what the practices, the open practices that we got to see, I don't think it landed the way a lot of us thought, it would. But like you said, you got a couple of games against non-Power 4 opponents to start. And I think this is going to be a little mix and match and see how everyone performs in a real game situation. And, the way this offensive line looks at Purdue might be different than what we see on Saturday, depending on how guys go. But to me, this seems like this is what we think the starting five should be. They're probably going to play around with a little bit, and you're going to get opportunities to play the other guys. And then, see what happens. Like, well, actually, this group looked better, or this guy looked better at this spot. I feel like they're going to try, you're experimenting a little bit here, but this is who they felt like were the best options for the opener. And then, that might change week 2, week 3, especially when Big Ten play starts. But I think this is just kind of where their first guess is, and then you can kind of build on it from there.
I actually think I feel a little differently. I don't know, unless there's an injury, if there really will be changes. I think this Kilian Jean-Ray Reed battle was fierce, and Kilian just won it. I kind of see that's the way it went. I mean, Jean-Ray Reed, we spoke with him before fall camp started, and this was a pretty revealing quote. He kind of felt like he was behind the 8 ball to Kilian then. He said, Kilian does everything the right way. He shows up on time. He's in the right place at the right time. He commands the room. I look up to him, and I'm older than him. That's because I respect what he's done. He does everything he's supposed to do. He's smart. He knows the system. He's been around guys who've done it at a high level. So when you have a guy like that, it's hard to sit there and be like, I'm just going to beat you out. He's definitely shocked me. It's hard to beat out a guy like that. That's a guy I don't mind competing with because he does everything the right way. I think the writing was kind of on the wall there, and I don't know how much we'll see Reed in the Big Ten unless there is an injury, because O'Connor, I think, just straight out beat him out, beat him out, and I think we need to come to terms with that. And then the rest of it, the thing about the Wingfield thing that stings the most is him being out, he was going to be the starting left guard, and the fact that he's out, that affected two positions, because I think if he was in, then Tobias Raymond would be the right tackle starter, and Justin Tauanuu would be your swing tackle who would come in case of emergency or if there was an injury, kind of like Raymond did last year against Missouri as a second-year guy. But because of that injury, they tried out Micah Benuelos at left, or that he was ruled ineligible. They tried out Micah Benuelos at left guard. He had some good moments, but he ultimately doesn't win that job. So then that makes Tobias Raymond go to left guard and Tauanuu go to right tackle. So it's just a lot of moving pieces. Lincoln Riley seems confident in the group. He's talked about how they're consistent, but there's just a lot that we didn't expect. And when you take two transfers and neither are in that first five, USC saw something to make them take the transfers, and then those guys were either ineligible or beaten out. It's not the best look.
Yeah. We'll see how this goes, but it's a lot different offensive line than we thought coming into fall camp or in the spring or whatever. But that's what they're rolling with, and we'll see if. I think they're experiment. Well, maybe they don't. Maybe there's hey, this is the way it's going to be, and that's where they're going forward.
I just don't know what the experiment is. Is Reed just going to go out there against Missouri State's second unit in the second half if it's a blowout and they're not playing their starters anymore either? And so, okay, I saw something. I kind of feel like the damage is already done. And if Micah Benuelos had this great camp, then he would have just been the left guard and Raymond would have been the right tackle. So I get what you're saying, and I think I'm disagreeing, but there's something in the middle there. We could find some common ground where, yes, if a guy comes on really strong and has a good game, he probably will play. But I kind of feel like they gave everyone a fair shake in camp. Yeah. This is what they landed on. And I do think initially they wanted Benuelos at left guard, and he was playing there a lot. And then it was like, okay, maybe we might need to make a move. And same with Reed. They tried him out with the ones, and okay, we need to make a move. This is them reacting to the expected lineup that we had not being quite good enough. So I kind of think they have the best five. Yeah.
Well, if it's a situation where you put someone in a game and they're just not playing like we saw in camp, then you probably have to shuffle. I think it's more of that. You're right. I don't think Jean-Ray Reed can prove a lot playing if he comes in a blowout. But if O'Connor just isn't doing what they thought he was going to do, and with Tobias Raymond, he's probably solid there. But if Justin isn't playing as well,
exactly.
Then they'll move
Throw
him
Micah
over.
in. Yeah.
So maybe experimenting is not the right thing, but just going out and now there's live bullets. How are these guys performing? Are they performing like we think? Yes, this is our starting five. If when the game comes, they're not doing what we need, then they might have to move things around.
Absolutely. And then Lincoln Riley said yesterday that he expects Jean-Ray Reed to factor in this year, and he's even dropped little hints like he might play guard at some point. But we just haven't seen that the whole camp.
No, he was always
center. Every single open practice, everything that we saw, he was in there at center. So I just think he's kind of saying that to keep Reed on board for now. And hey, maybe now they make a switch and they rep him at guard in practice. But he came in to be the center. He was the center the last 2 years at Syracuse. He just hasn't repped at guard. I think they're going to have a hard time keeping him in the mix if Kilian O'Connor is just the better center come Big Ten play.
Yeah. I'm trying to put some comments and stuff on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook as we're going. And again, if you have a question, just put question and then I'll start and we'll get to it later when we answer questions from everybody. There's also a couple injuries. When I was at Salute to Troy, the freshman Jakeem Stewart was in a walking boot. I know you got an update with that, and also the kicker situation, if you want to give people an update on what the injury situation is.
Yeah, Jakeem Stewart, 50-50 to play. Lincoln Riley said yesterday he did have the boot, as you said, Ryan, and that continued. Yesterday he walked out in a walking boot, didn't practice. I think if it's up to Jakeem, he would really want to be out there and want to play. But, of course, the former five-star recruit, you don't need to get him up to speed this fast and force him to be out there against a Missouri State opponent. If it was, the Big Ten championship or something like that, maybe they'd feel a little differently. But there's no point in rushing him out there if he's not 100%. And then Caden Chittenden, the kicker transfer from UNLV, he is not going to play in week 1 against Missouri State. So Ryan Sayeri, who had the punt last year against Texas A&M in the bowl game, he's going to handle the kicks and field goals and extra points. So he'll be getting a lot of run on Saturday. Chittenden, Riley didn't talk about the specifics of the injury, but mentioned how he thinks he'll be back soon, but it potentially could be a couple weeks. So we'll see with him.
All right. Yeah, that's kicking situation you weren't really sure of there. And with Stewart, they're really deep on the defensive line, but you'd like to get him in there and see what he can do. I think one of the things that you saw USC as a scoring defense go from, it was like a really bad 120 or 119 or something, and somewhere in the 50s, got a lot better, but the pressure on the quarterback wasn't there. And I think that's one of the things we're going to be watching on the defensive side. Having a guy like Jakeem Stewart, I think he can generate some pressure for sure. So you hope you get to see him out there and see what he can do. But it's a very deep defensive line, and, I think you can overmatch an opponent like Missouri State, but there's things that you weren't doing well last year. You want to try to do, if there's fourth downs, you don't want to be giving up those because that's something USC was bad at. And also just, generating those negative plays, the tackles for loss. You should be able to get some of those against an opponent like Missouri State. And we'd like to see Jakeem Stewart in there if he's able to do that. But like you said, 50-50 at this point.
Yeah, and expect to see everyone play against Missouri State, like even the true freshman guys on scout team. Chris Trevino wrote the names of the guys on scout team on Ghost Notes yesterday. So just because those guys are there, that probably means they won't play a ton against better opposition, but everyone should get some run in that first game, which is why if Stewart can't play, it's too bad. He's the 5-star guy who
everyone wants to see.
I want to see what he looks like out there too. So of course you got to get him healthy. That's the most important thing. But I wouldn't lie. I won't lie. I was really excited to see him. I hope he can play.
We had a comment from Trojan Fight. Feels like we aren't getting the full story on Stewart. Not sure if it was Stewart himself or one of the coaches, but thought I hear at one time that it was just a bruise.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. Someone got in touch with Stewart's camp and said, "Hey, are you going to play?" They said yes, and that ultimately wasn't 100%. The player, of course, wants to play, and like I said, I think if it was a bigger game and they needed him, he'd be out there, but it's not up to him if he's going to play. It's up to the coaches and the medical staff, and Riley yesterday said it's 50-50. So he's going to be a game-time decision. We'll be out at practice today. If he's out of the walking boot, that's obviously a good sign. If he's still in it, then that's just another day closer to the game. So it's very well could be a bruise. I'm not exactly sure what the extent of the injury was, but I think the confusion there is someone reached out to him and said, "Hey, are you going to play?" He said yes, but again, it's not up to him. It's up to the coaching staff and the medical team.
Yeah, and I was at Salute to Troy and, talked to people around him, and the word we got was it was just a bruise.
Yeah.
Like that's what
it's not serious. No, I don't think we're debating that.
That's what we were told. I didn't hear anything about he's definitely going to play.
Exactly.
But the word I got from his camp there at Salute to Troy was he's going to be all right, which I think is still true, but that doesn't mean you're going to play. And yes, I think when we talk to sources, you can't just, everything isn't gospel and everyone has a different view. Like you said, a player's parent might say, yeah, he's playing for sure. But the player's parent doesn't decide if he's going to play or not. It's more on what's going on with the team. So
yeah,
yes.
But the overall point is it's a minor thing. I would expect him at this point, based on everything we've heard, that he would play against Georgia Southern if he misses that Missouri State game. But maybe if we're in the same place a week from now and it's like, well, don't rush him back against a non-Power 4 team, then maybe they'll have the same stance. But we'll see. I think it's very fluid, and there's a chance he plays this week. It's 50-50, as Riley said.
Yeah. So there's also some position battles we want to go over. I mean, the offensive line was like kind of the biggest one out there. I don't know where you want to start, but we can go over a couple of the ones and anything you've heard from practice, from Riley, anything going into it.
We'll speak with Danton Lynn today to hopefully get an update on the cornerbacks. Last time we spoke with him, he talked about how it's still really close and they're going to play a lot of guys. So I don't know exactly how healthy Chasen Johnson is. He was out there yesterday. He looked like a full participant to me. So that is a good sign because he hadn't been a full participant the prior couple weeks. I think he was trending towards starting with DeCarlos Nicholson, but then he was banged up a little bit, so we saw a lot of Braylon Conley with that first team. it looks like the Carlos Nicholson will be one of the starters for sure, and then the second guy will either be Chasen Johnson or Braylon Conley. The depth chart from USC will come out today or tomorrow, so that'll confirm a lot of this stuff. I wouldn't be surprised with the corners if there were some oars, because that position battle is still really tight. And then I expect to see some of DJ Harvey, some of Marcellus Williams. Last year, Lynn played 4 corners pretty frequently, so just because a guy doesn't start doesn't necessarily mean they won't be in the rotation. So I think when USC's blowing out Missouri State, what can you be watching for as a fan, like depth chart-wise, little hints about what the rest of the year will look like? Definitely be watching the corner spot, because I think that's a position that is still a little bit up in the air, where a lot of these aren't. The third receiver spot is another one on offense where Tanuk Hines is getting a lot of buzz right now. He'll probably start behind Prince Strawn and behind Zacharias Williams to begin the year, but DJ Jordan is in that mix as well with Hines. So those 4 guys are fighting to be in the rotation, and I think the 2 transfers will start in the rotation with Jordan and with Hines. We'll see who emerges out of that group. And then looking at the defensive line, Cameron Fountain, Anthony Lucas, Braylon Shelby, those are the edge guys. The interior, we know Keyshawn Silver will be in the mix. We know that Devin Tompkins will be in the mix, but what does it look like behind them with guys like Jade Abasiri, with Floyd Buchard, with Carlon Jones, with Kobe Pepe? How the rest of that group shakes out, I think, is really intriguing. And Jakeem Stewart, of course, is a big part of that, but he could potentially not be playing. So those 3 areas, corner, defensive line, wide receiver, those are the 3 to really be paying attention to, because I think that's where the position battles are still ongoing here heading into this first game.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, I think you're going to see a big rotation there. I like what you mentioned about the 4 corners. They played a lot of guys, and Alex Graham looks like he's going to be the nickel guy with Prophet Brown injury there. So true freshman. There's more true freshmen kind of in the 2 deep than we maybe thought kind of coming into this. So I think we'll see how that plays out. And then watching the defensive line rotation and how I think they rotated quite a bit last year. I think they'll do the same.
Yeah, and they want to. Danton Lynn has talked a lot about that, how last year he didn't feel like they had the necessary depth, which makes a lot of sense. And this year they just have so many more guys they can throw at them. I'll be watching the edge rushers too. And just because, say, someone has a huge game, it's against Missouri State, we'll see if it carries over. I get all that, but USC just didn't get a lot of sacks last year. Just didn't get a lot of tackles for loss, a lot of pressures. So I think any sacks, any tackles for loss, any pressures, even against an inferior opponent, will make me say, okay, I definitely like what I'm seeing here, just because we didn't get a lot of that last year.
No, you're right. And when you looked at the defensive improvements, there were certain areas that just were so much better, and there was other areas that needed work. And you felt like on the defensive line side, if you just added some bigger bodies and some better talent, that you could improve on, getting more tackles for loss, making more plays in the backfield. And I think that helps. If the defensive line plays better, it helps the linebackers clean up the messes. It helps the secondary and coverage. There's a lot of things that can make this work. So I think it's almost like you fixed some of the hard parts last year, and now you got to clean up some other things. And right away you're going to want to see some negative plays generated by this defensive line. So we'll see if that ends up coming to be.
The one good player on Missouri State, and there are other guys who will contribute for him this year, but the guy to know is Jacob Clark, their quarterback. He is a third-year starter. He could have entered the portal and probably not made a huge jump, but he could have made a smaller jump, maybe not in the Power 4, potentially a lower-level Power 4 team, maybe a better non-Power 4 team, but he chose to stay. Bobby Petrino's son, Nick Petrino, is the offensive coordinator, and he has been for the last 6 years. So there's a lot of comfortability in this offense. They're moving up from the FCS level, so I'm not saying that this Clark quarterback is going to come in and light up USC, but he is a guy who, talking to a couple people around the Missouri State team, they say he has a chance to be a late-round NFL draft pick. So that fan base is really excited about him. I know the coaching staff at Missouri State's excited to see what Jacob Clark can do in a hostile environment against a team that, let's face it, he's never seen anything like USC coming from the FCS ranks. I think Clark was actually recruited to play at Minnesota and then transferred to play at Missouri State. He never ended up playing at Minnesota. So he had that Power 4 quarterback ability out of high school, and he's showing it a little bit here. So, I mean, he's a good player, and again, I don't expect him to have a huge game, but it'll just be fun to see what USC can do against a quarterback who some people are pretty high on.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think this is if you don't know, coming from the Missouri Valley Conference, FCS team now moving up, going to be in Conference USA, or is in Conference USA, and this is the first FBS game. So for USC, they still haven't played an FCS opponent, but this is the very first FBS game
so it still
for
counts.
Missouri State. It's kind of interesting. Ryan Beard is the head coach.
Yep, defensive guy.
Married the daughter of Bobby Petrino, who was the head coach prior to Ryan Beard.
And Beard was the DC.
So that's kind of an interesting aspect to this. But
so his wife's brother is the offensive coordinator.
Yes. So it's like his wife's. Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff going on. They've been pretty good. They weren't world beaters in the FCS world, but you got like the Petrino name around this program. I mean, there's some, that's big time. And, we'll see, kind of what they're able to do in this one. Like you've got a good quarterback, first ever, FBS game. Like, I don't know if you're expecting a whole lot for them to come in the Coliseum and, and rattle some cages, do something, shock the world, whatever. But it's an interesting opener, and I think it's different than last year where you had LSU and this was like this huge deal. And I feel like now you can do some things to sort of like get your house in order and get ready for the rest of the regular season. But it's kind of an interesting little matchup there. But some cool storylines behind the scenes with like the whole Petrino family being kind of a big part of this program.
USC is a 35.5-point favorite, so it's not a chess match. But what is nice is Riley calls the plays on offense for USC, and Beard, the head coach of Missouri State, calls the defensive plays. So it'll be the two head coaches going up against each other. That could be potentially fun. I talked to a beat writer who covers Missouri State, and he mentioned how the offensive line and the defensive line are the two weakest parts of that team.
Yeah.
Like coming up from the FCS level, we think USC is doing all they can to get big bodies in the middle. Like Missouri State is getting guys from Division II. Like they are trying everything they possibly can just to get the requisite size to compete in this first year in the FBS. So USC should run over Missouri State because there are question marks on their offensive line and defensive line. And we can like the quarterback all we want, but this is a situation where if Tom Brady in his prime is back there, I don't think he's having a very good day. USC should be able to get through this offensive line, and then vice versa. They should have an easy time blocking some of these guys.
Jeff had a comment. The chat's pretty active, so way to get in there and talk. He says, Connor, never trust the spread or over-under. For USC, we always find a way to botch it. Well, USC actually covered really well at home last year.
Yep.
They covered well at home. We're going to put out our picks again.
I did really well my first year with you. I think I won it. Last year I was maybe the worst, so I got to get back to doing better than that.
But USC covered well at home last year. I think there's a lot of points, and I do feel like they might be playing around a little bit. 6 touchdowns is a lot to win by, even if they don't give up any points. But yeah, I kind of think I'd take the points here. But yeah, I don't know. It's USC could win 50-0, but it also could be something like it's, 40-10. It's like not covering the spread.
I remember that last Caleb Williams year when USC came out against San Jose State, and they didn't play very well, but they still covered because they had 3 pick sixes. Like that's what's so hard weird, about it. Where that was a game where we left and we're scratching our heads like that looked really ugly for
they shouldn't
USC.
have covered that spread.
Exactly, but they still did. So in these games, it's challenging because if the opponent is undermanned, like you can get 3 pick sixes and still not really play well. So it's hard with these massive ones. I think I'm going to pick USC because even if it's an extension of training camp, like we talked about, they don't have Missouri State doesn't have good offensive linemen and good defensive linemen. Like that should lead to a big win.
Yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening there. There is, I know, an emotional aspect to this. So senior safety Todrick McGee passed away from an accidental gunshot wound. So I think there was some some rallying there. So there's some different, just if you're not, obviously most people aren't going to be familiar with this program. It was cool. It was a cool piece that you did, talking to the beat writer for Missouri State and just getting some information there. But we got all that up on the site over at uscfootball.com. You make sure to check it out. Anything else kind of stand out from that conversation? Jacob Clark, obviously the main, he's a tall dude, really good quarterback. But yeah, outside of that, anything else kind of stand out?
Not a ton. I think
they got a good kicker, right? He was like really good last year.
Yeah, so watch out. But I don't think field goals are enough to keep this one competitive. Yeah, with Todrick McGee, he was a returning starter and a captain potentially this year, so that loss has rocked them. And if they start with 10 players on the field for USC's first offensive play and USC declines the penalty and you're sitting at home like, what the heck, why don't they just take the 5 yards? It's because they're going to be honoring McGee, so that's something to pay attention to. I don't know exactly if they're just going to do like a helmet patch or something on the jersey, but there's also talk that they might only put 10 guys out there for their first defensive play. So just be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, be on the lookout for that. Oh, we have a celebrity in the chat. The Spanish voice of the Trojans, Harry Weiss. Let's go, Ryan O'Connor. It's game week. Yes. Harry, hope you enjoy the call.
He should get a lot of touchdown calls this week.
Yeah. We still love the touchdown call he gave us. I got to put it on the board.
Yeah, you should.
That's like... that was a great one. Cool. All right. So we have that. Anything else with Missouri State? There's not I don't know. It's just one of those things where, hey.
The coach said they have 0 to lose coming in. So
true.
Maybe we'll see some trick plays or something. I don't know if you want to give our official record predictions on this show too before the season starts, but that just popped into my head.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Here, this is good. We can, the schedule poster came out. I'm going to put it up. It's probably, if you're watching on YouTube, it's going to cover my face, but that's okay. It's kind of small, but you can kind of see the schedule poster. Looks pretty cool. Got a bunch of different players there on the front. Yeah, you going back and forth. So the over-under is 7.5 in Vegas, right? I think we're both on the over. I was going back and forth between 9-3 and 8-4. I think I've settled in on 8-4, but what do you think? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I've settled in there too. 8-4 is my prediction, and that is a 2-game improvement from last year. So I know some people see that and it's like, oh, what? That's not good enough. But it's better than what Vegas adds. It's a 2-game improvement from last year. I just think it's so challenging to win on the road in the Big Ten, especially with this schedule. Those are the games I look at. Remember, Jaden Mayava has never started a true road game in the Big Ten at USC. Only started the UCLA game last year, and he led USC to a nice win. But that's just night and day from at Nebraska, at Illinois, at Oregon, at Notre Dame. So if those end up being the 4 losses, that wouldn't shock me. I do think USC has a chance to get it done against Michigan. I actually like USC in that game. We'll see, of course, how the season plays out. But just on paper before the year, I have a hard time believing a true freshman quarterback will come into the Coliseum against this defense and beat USC. And then I think some weird stuff could happen. Like I could see USC going into Eugene and winning, but then losing to UCLA. I think it's that kind of year where they maybe will drop one that we don't expect, but they'll have a marquee win that'll get people excited. So, yeah, I've settled on 8-4 too. I just have too many questions about the offensive line and the quarterback. I think the defense will be better, but an injury here or there's not a lot of depth at some key spots. So all that goes into my head, and 8-4 comes out.
Yeah, it's more of just like feeling that is USC going to be – I think USC made a lot of good decisions in the offseason to improve things and make things better. But also, do you trust that they're going to be able to have every I dotted and every T crossed, or we're going to see some of the stuff you saw last year, especially on the road where all USC's toughest games are, and I feel like they're going to, have some good moments and win some good games that, could have gone either way, but just sort of fall short in a couple areas where, you could argue they probably shouldn't have by the end of the season. So I think 8-4 is like kind of the par, and I'm going to pick what I think par is. But I think they can do. I definitely think they can do better than that. but I'm not going to project that they do. I think you got to be 8-4 is like, to me, that's par. Like you need to, if you're below that, like that's bad. You don't want to have you've had 2 double bogey seasons in a row. You can't have another one, So 7-5, 6-6, those are bad. 8-4, you can be like, all right, it's a 2-game improvement, like you said. But anything above that, if you're 9-3, you're in the discussion of a playoff, just like South Carolina and Alabama and Ole Miss were last year. I think you'll be in the discussion, especially if you get a win on the road of like a Notre Dame or something. But I just feel like there's not going to be able to finish all those games and be able to keep it up week in and week out. Could be wrong. I think 10-2 is something that's possible, but I feel like 8-4 is par. I'm just going to pick them to do that.
I feel very similarly to you with that. Just that schedule, it's a gauntlet, especially in the second half. So there's a world too where they start 5-0 and everyone gets pumped like that. That Illinois game is the one to really pay attention to, because I think everyone's in agreement 4-0. They absolutely have to start 4-0, and then you got to win who's ahead of you, take it week by week, but season kind of starts at Illinois.
Yes, I think that's a big one, because they're going to be a top 15 type of team unless they do something weird to start the season. But certainly a beatable thing. They're not like some world-beating team. Like, just go on there, just go on the road and win. You got to go on the road to Purdue first and win. At least you can kind of get out of time zone road victory, like out of the way. Like, all right, finally. Now you have some opportunities to get some other wins. You can't. I think you got to go to Nebraska and you got to win. I think if you can do that, the Illinois game, that's a big deal. And then it's like, all right, you've beat a ranked team in the Big Ten on the road. Now you're looking, if you win that game, I think now like 9-3, 10-2 is much more reasonable. You lose that one, it's just sort of like, that's where I feel like you're probably going to settle into 8-4 somewhere.
Does the fact that Josh Henson coached every single one of USC's offensive linemen last year and USC playing on the road at Purdue, I know they only bring back one returning starter and they have like 70 transfers and they were 1-11 last year. Does that game make you think, oh, I'm a little nervous at all? Or you think like it's like Arizona State from a couple of years ago when even when USC didn't have a great game, they still kicked the crap out of them?
Yeah, I think they're still kick the crap out of them, because that's where Josh Henson is, right?
Yeah. He's their offensive coordinator. So he definitely knows a lot about that offensive line group at USC, which, as we've discussed, has some question marks.
Yeah, I'm not. You shouldn't be too worried about that. But Barry Odom did a great job at UNLV turning over the roster and starting to win games, but that was not in the Big Ten. That was in the Mountain West. So I think he's going to do a good job there, but I think it's going to take a little time. USC.
Yeah, I just don't see it as like a 52-10 situation. I actually think Purdue, like USC's going to win that game, and I don't know what the spread will be. Like they'll have a chance to cover the spread, but I don't see it as a dominating situation just based on last year. USC on the road last year was terrible. Like
yeah, they were
I don't
terrible.
think you can just flip the switch even if it's against an inferior team.
Matthew says it. SC loses to Purdue, get the buyout money.
Not predicting a loss. Just I caution everyone when they say, "Hey, this is an easy, no problem win." Like I think it's going to be a win, but like Purdue, I think they're going to have a little bit more fight than last year. That's all I'm saying.
A Spike T joint says, "Bro thinks we're going to struggle with Purdue."
Yeah.
Laugh my. Hey, guess what? USC lost to Maryland last year, so there's no guarantees. Like that happened. Maryland won a single conference game last season. They could only win one in the Big Ten. You know who they beat? They beat USC as what were they, a 14-point underdog or something like that? I forget what that game was, but it was something bad. So, yeah, there's no guarantees here. And Barry Odom's done a nice job. I don't think USC is going to struggle. I don't know what the spread's going to be, but USC has to win a game outside of the Western time zone, and they haven't done that for a while. So this is the great opportunity to get to play the worst team in the Big Ten and get a win, or arguably the worst team. I don't know. We'll see if someone's like.
Michigan State might be worse than them, and that's who USC plays after. So
yeah, USC.
I don't think USC will have any problem with Michigan State at home. Not saying that, but Purdue on the road, I think might be a little bit of a tougher spot.
Yeah, All right. Why don't we do this? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and do some questions. If you're watching us live on YouTube or Facebook, put some questions in the chat, and we would love to get to them. But back in a minute, everyone. All righty. We're back here on the Peristyle Podcast. Yeah, I'm your host, Ryan Abraham. Been publishing USCFootball.com for almost 30 years. We have a 50% off sale going on right now. If you want to be a VIP member, you will not regret it. The Peristyle is the biggest, oldest, longest running USC message board out there. Go check it out. Tons of Trojan fans, 24 hours a day are on there arguing, discussing, sharing ideas, all those things. You don't want to miss it. Go check it out. Connor got indoctrinated when he joined a couple years ago, and it's figuring out the P over the years. It's pretty fun to do. I know you like it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm reading the P right now, and there's been a thread about my offensive line comments, and it's been a lot. So I just got tagged in something, but focus on that after the show.
Yeah, we'll do that after. Someone called you the GOAT on the P.
Yeah, and it was.
It's funny. It's like it's a overly negative poster, and you had said something about the offensive line that wasn't like a glowing review. That in year 4, which makes sense, right? In year 4, you expect a little more from a Lincoln Riley like offensive line. Like it might work, but you'd expected something more Elijah Pages out there. And so the overly negative poster took to what you said as gospel, and then everyone kind of jumped on that, and so you kind of got wrapped up in a not very popular poster right now.
Yes. So what are you going to do? But
yes.
I mean, I guess I'll just rehash it for a second. I just said, look, in year 4, when Lincoln Riley got hired, did you expect the offensive line in year 4 to look like this? Like if you look at Notre Dame's offensive line, Penn State's offensive line, Clemson's offensive line, it's a lot of older guys. So some guys who were there, they predate Riley with injuries and red shirts and COVID years and stuff. But like, those lines, the recruiting rankings of those players are just better, and that's not the end-all, be-all. I'm not saying this line is bad. I just think we have to go in poking holes in the team. Like that's what our job is. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? I think that the receivers are a big strength, and the defense is a strength, and we'll see if the pass rush can improve. But like, if we're trying to predict out how the season goes, and that's the offensive line that they've thrown together, like, yeah, okay, I think on paper that looks like the weak point. You're with an offensive coach who's in his 4th year. I think it's fair to say, hey, I probably expect a little bit more there.
Yes.
All I was saying.
I get it, and I agree with you, but then people are going to jump on you because the negative poster is sort of like latched onto what you said.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
So come and subscribe and come hang out.
Yeah, it's fun. Half off right now. And when you sign up and you start after the promo and you start paying regular price, you actually get Paramount Plus, the streaming service, for free. So that's like $100 a year. So it's like basically it's awesome. It's a great deal. There's a lot of cool shows over on Paramount Plus. I started watching Dexter. Have you ever watched that one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I never watched the original show, and there's like a whole bunch of them now, but they're all on Paramount Plus. A lot of cool stuff on Paramount Plus, so you can go check it out. And you get it for free when you're a subscriber to USCFootball.com. So it's a nice little perk you get there. This is from Stephen Poway. We got an email. Ryan and Connor, as the season nears, it seems like the Trojans are going to be better off, but still lacking depth at the offensive line and linebacker positions. So he has 2 points. 1, do you agree with my initial assessment? Do you think they'll be lacking depth at the offensive line and linebackers?
I think at offensive line, specifically tackle, yes, the depth at tackle is a little sketchy. It seems to be better on the inside. And then at linebacker, they don't have a ton of experience depth. Eric Gentry is the only guy in that room who has started a game on defense in his college career. But Riley feels really good about that depth, and that's something that I could see being solid. I think Desmond Stevens projects to be the best Mike linebacker that USC's had under Riley, even as a sophomore. So very excited about him. And then behind him, Elijah Newby's a guy who's gotten a lot of praise. Jane Walker, Tamir Robinson. So those guys don't have a lot of experience, but they seem to be on the right track. And I think that position group is probably the one that could benefit the most from some of these blowouts where we see guys who just haven't played a lot get more experience. Because I think there's some guys with a lot of potential in that room, and I'd be excited about that group. But it's not proven, so I get the question. And yeah, not a ton of offensive tackle depth, not a ton of experienced linebacker depth, but I probably feel better about the linebacker room than I do the offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like Rob Ryan seems very confident in those guys, even though there's not a lot of proven production there. But anyway, he said the second part is, why do you think Chad Bowden and Lincoln Riley didn't recruit more aggressively for players at those two positions? Thanks, fight on and win in 2025, Stephen Poway.
Well, I think with the linebackers, the plan was Desmond Stevens going to be the guy in his second year, so they didn't feel like they needed to go get an experienced Mike linebacker, and they didn't even really try. They didn't go after a Power 5 guy. They went after a guy who ended up at Syracuse, who was from South Dakota State. They recruited Andrew Simpson a little bit, who was at Boise State. So guys who could come in and contribute, but maybe weren't necessarily going to start. I think they really liked Gentry and Desmond Stevens, so they didn't really feel like they needed to go out and get a more experienced guy. And then kind of like what we said earlier with the offensive line, it's what we've been talking about, where they did see that they had some holes. They added a couple of guys, and then unfortunately one got beat out and one was ineligible. So that's a position where it's disappointing that that's the way it shook out. But like they tried, they addressed those needs, and then ultimately they didn't end up working out.
And Chad Bowden hasn't been here that long. It was a hard time for him to impact the 2025 roster. 2026, you can see it. The recruiting class is great. If he came in a little bit earlier, I think things could have changed. You probably keep Emmanuel Pregnon in my estimation, and he could have been more involved in the early portal window, where he was really only involved in the spring window, right? Like I don't
Correct.
think he was. Yeah, so he wasn't around for like the January portal. So that's like the main one where you're getting guys. So I don't think it was a Chad Bowden thing. He just came in later in the process to impact 2025's roster.
Absolutely. And the spring portal guys look pretty solid so far. Like Zach Williams has a chance to contribute at receiver, and Tamir Robinson, I don't know how much he'll play, but it seems like he's taken some strides, and people are excited about him. How that linebacker depth shakes out will be really fun. And then Chasen Johnson, that's the name I'm forgetting. He came in the spring window. I don't know how much Bowden had to do with him. That was more of Trevon Reed, because he'd coached him before, but that was when Bowden was in charge, so I'm sure he had a hand in it. Kennedy Urlacher looks like a good player for the future. So I think in that spring window you saw Bowden flex his muscle a little bit, but he was very clear with us that he wasn't going to try to make any home run swings with that spring portal. He just wanted to add guys who he felt like could help the team here or there. They weren't looking to add like a David Bailey from Stanford who was going to cost over $1 million. They were just looking to make tweaks here and there, and they really wanted to focus on the high school class.
Yeah, but the quality that he brought in a harder window to recruit out of seemed to be pretty darn good. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this time around in the main window, what he's able to do there. Let's go to some questions from the chat on Trojan Fight. Is there any plans for DJ to appeal? So he's talking about DJ Wingfield. Since his ruling by judge, there's multiple guys across the country have gotten approval through courts. Yeah, so it depends which judge you were with, but I don't think there's really any chance of this. But what do you think?
He could appeal, but nothing would happen in time for him to be ruled eligible this year based on what I've heard. So that is what it is. I think his lawyer, they've just kind of moved on. This was the opportunity. That was the time, and unfortunately, even if he appeals, what is he going to come back next year? Then what is he, like 25, 26?
Yeah,
I think it's kind of done.
I think the ship has sailed on this one. So, Jamie, I know I just saw this too. No Big Ten games on YouTube TV since when? So, yes, there's a dispute going on. And USC's game this weekend is on Big Ten Network. If you have YouTube TV, I think it's going to go out soon, like before this weekend. But the fact that Texas Ohio State is on there, it's going to be available. People are going to have it'll be outrage. NFL, you can't miss that. So I think they'll get this done, but it's one of those negotiation things going on, like a Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones talk thing. That's my guess. But yes, as of now, Big Ten Network this weekend wouldn't be available on YouTube TV, which is what I have also.
They got to get that figured out.
Yeah.
I hate when this happens. I definitely missed some game when I was little that still bothers me. I think we had Dish Network and they had a big fight. And
Oh, yeah.
it's never good. Never good when stuff like that happens. I think my dad is he was vengeful, and I think he switched. So I think we got off a Dish and went to Comcast after that.
Oh, nice. Okay. Facebook, Thomas says, I'm behind on episodes. Did Triple Double get his car fixed? Yeah, he's here.
Yes, I'm in studio. Yes, I did. Thank goodness. But you know what? Didn't get fixed.
What?
I don't have any air conditioning, so I'm dying when I'm driving.
Are you kidding?
I gotta get that fixed now. But the car moves, so I'm not walking everywhere anymore and doing these remotely. But yeah, so that's the next project. Well, I'll figure that out. The guy was like, "Do you just want the car? It'll cost more and it'll take longer if I fix this." I was like, "Just give me the car. I need it."
Yeah, you need.
Enough about me, though.
No, you got it. But that's thanks, Thomas, for that one.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
But he's in studio, so he did get here. Hugo, been waiting to get on live. Connor, I manage an auto repair shop out in Chino Hills. Okay, so maybe if you need your air conditioning fixed, Hugo can help you out.
Okay, reach out to me on social media, on X or on the site or something. Yeah, thanks, Hugo.
All right, this is one from Jamie. We'll get rid of Connor's car talk. Do we think tempers flare in the Michigan game because of how it all went down? The McCree hit also seemed a little low and dirty. What is he talking about?
Remember, Lake got hit in the knee last year and then missed a couple games. I don't think tempers will flare in the Michigan game. Last year, the only time tempers really flared before the game was when Sierra Wright at Nebraska was getting into it with a couple of USC guys, and there was a small coming together in the middle of the Coliseum. And yeah, Michigan doesn't have any USC guys or vice versa, right? So I don't think there's any bad blood with that. Never say never, I guess. It's football. It's a physical game, and there could be something, but I don't think anything from last year's game will lead to any kind of a fight or anything.
This is from Walker. Let me pull it up here. Hold on. So, yeah, we were talking about the Jean-Ray Reed and O'Connor situation. So bringing him in, he says USC still needed a center. Who was the backup behind O'Connor? So if USC didn't have Jean-Ray Reed, who would have been the backup there?
I don't know if he would play because they might throw someone else at center, more of an emergency option, but the third string center is true freshman Willie Washer.
Okay.
From Washington.
Yeah, so I think you needed to bring, yes, you brought Jean-Ray Reed. He's not going to start, but probably still important. You needed somebody outside of O'Connor to be there at play the center spot. Blackie Chan had a question. Do you have any position matchups you're interested to see this weekend?
I do. Last year, Missouri State was 5th in the FCS in passing offense, so I want to see how USC's cornerbacks, if the quarterback's able to make throws, if the defensive line doesn't get to him in time, how the USC cornerbacks look against the passing offense that for the FCS was pretty good last year. Quarterback, as we talked about, is pretty good. So looking at that matchup. And then, again, by all accounts, it's an offensive line and a defensive line for Missouri State. So I'm looking at USC's trench play to dominate. That's my expectation. That's what I'll be watching for too. So the corners and then USC in the trenches.
Yeah, I think you just want to be, for me, I want to see some continue to be fundamentally sound on defense. If you remember, Connor brought up that San Jose State game. Who was the receiver caught 3 touchdowns?
Nick Nash.
Nick Nash had 3 touchdown catches in that. You don't want to see crap like that happening. I think getting pressure on the quarterback, making some plays in the backfield, all that. And I think just not making big mistakes on offense. This is not a defense that should put a lot of pressure on you. You can run the ball. You can, do first, second reads and just get the ball out. And you don't need to push anything too crazy. You can throw the ball at tight ends. You can throw the ball to a wide range of receivers, backs out of the backfield. See if the offensive line holds up against what should be an overmatched defensive line. Just those kind of basic things you want to see. If something's really standing out of the ordinary, like some receiver you never heard of caught 3 touchdown passes, that's a bad sign. You don't want to see that.
I don't expect that. I think San Jose State is better or was better than this Missouri State team.
Yeah.
So,
but still, they weren't very
if
good.
if someone catches 3 touchdowns on Missouri State, cancel the season.
Yeah. Trojan fight over under sacks for the game.
6.5. Maybe
Wow.
I'll set the line there. Their beat writer said the offensive line is not as bad and has question marks. So if Cameron Fountain and these guys are like everyone says, then yeah, let's let the dogs out. Let's let them loose. Let's see. I think USC can get to that number of sacks.
6.5.
Right? Is that
Yeah.
crazy? Like Eric Gentry was so good last year getting to the quarterback. He's healthy.
He was.
Okay, maybe that's high. 4.5. I don't know. I think they can get to 7.
Okay. If you go 6.5, I'm going to go.
It's a
under.
35.5 point spread. Like
I know.
if you watch some of the highlights from last year, it's a small team. Like this should be a shellacking.
It should be. We'll see if it is. Does 8-4 in most cases keep the stacked 26 class together? Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I just wonder how totally safe Riley is with 8-4, but I think that is enough for him to be safe. But like, I don't think at the end of the year, if they are 8-4, like, I don't think stuff goes away like we've talked about, and like maybe there is a conversation, and maybe Jen Cohen has a decision to make. But I think 8-4 should be enough. Anything less than that, though, then things get a little shaky.
Christian wants to know what would have to happen for you guys to change your record prediction. Well, this is tough because it's like before the season.
Caleb Williams comes back.
But like, so last year, Connor said USC was going to be 7-5. USC wins the opener against LSU. And that's one of those games where you felt like if they win that game, you could be a little more optimistic on predictions. So Connor's was more of a pessimistic prediction, right? 7-5. And then the fact you win that first game, now you're like, oh crap. So I think even he was like, okay, well, they're going to be better than 7-5. We didn't expect them to go 6-6, especially after beating LSU to start the season. I don't know, like, you'd be pretty far into it, but like if they beat Illinois, I would think it's more of a 9-3 type of season. But that's 5 games in. But I don't know, nothing's going to change like tomorrow that I would change that, like, or doing something against Missouri State. But if that Illinois game, I think, is a big one. If they can beat a ranked team on the road, then I think now you have the ceiling's much higher.
Exactly. You talk about the schedule. That's a good point. It's not like there's a game early in the season where if USC wins, it's like, okay, then I'll change things. It would be that Illinois game, like you said. But I could see them starting 5-0 and then still going 8-4. Like the back half of the schedule is very hard. So I don't really think anything, but let's see. I didn't think they'd beat LSU last year, and then that caused me to switch. So, like, of course, if they look really good in these first 4 games, maybe I'll feel a little bit better. But just got serious questions about the offensive line and the quarterback. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Jeff says, I thought Luke Heward was taking over play calling, or is he just the quarterback coach?
He's the quarterback coach and offensive coordinator, but Riley is really the offensive coordinator. Riley will call the plays. If Riley's not calling the plays, he ain't the head coach.
Yeah, like it's so funny when people like think about that. Like there's no like if
you brought him here to be like that's his best thing he does is call the plays. That's his bread and butter. That's why he's the head coach at USC to do that.
Yes, he's if Luke Heward was named offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and official play caller of the USC football Trojan offense, Lincoln Riley would still be calling the plays. So just that's not a thing. Oh, look at this. We got a super chat.
Wow.
Oh, it's your buddy from the P too, if it's the same one. Only Natties at USC. The guy we were talking about. Either Reed isn't talented as we thought, or Riley is mismanaging the depth chart. Why bring him in as an upgrade to sit behind a former walk-on?
I don't know why that's in quotes. I think Reed just isn't getting up to speed with the offense at the same level O'Connor is, and that is why O'Connor is in there. I urge everyone to read my story on Kilian. Every single player who's talked about him talks about his intelligence, his ability to command the line. Even John Ray Reed talked about how he does everything right. This is a guy who has the best possible mindset, attitude, intelligence. Like he has all those intangibles, and that is exactly why he won the job. if Reed and O'Connor started at the same level and were both learning a new offense, maybe Reed would win the job. But O'Connor is just much more advanced understanding it. So I don't think Riley is mismanaging the depth chart. And Reed probably is a little bit less talented maybe than they thought. But I don't think it's a talent thing. I think it's a fit thing. And Reed just doesn't fit as well as O'Connor does because O'Connor has much more experience.
Yeah. Only Natties. He's definitely can be a little polarizing on the P, but thanks for the super chat. We appreciate that. Mark says, only Natties put his money where his mouth is. Don't agree with that mindset, but do your thing. Yeah, he's a little bit more pessimistic than some others maybe. But yeah, I agree. It's one of those situations that, yes, on the surface, you're talking about you brought in a higher profile transfer. Everyone thought he would be the starter.
It's like Michael Tarquin from a couple of years ago. Everyone thought he was going to be the left tackle guy.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't good enough, or he didn't get the offense. Like I think with him it was more he wasn't good enough. But Reed, I think like we watched, the talent is there with him. I think it's a little bit of a different thing where it's the same in this fact that they brought in a transfer and he didn't win the job. It's different in how they lost the job to me. I think Tarquin just wasn't as good. Reed, I think, is actually a pretty solid player, but O'Connor just straight up beat him out, and that's because of his understanding of the offense.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Got another one. Do you think Illinois is overrated?
I don't think they're a college football playoff team, so if some people think that, then maybe I think they're overrated. But like, I think Brett Bielema's a good coach, and I think Luke Altmaier, he's not a great quarterback, but he's a quarterback who can certainly at home beat a team like USC. I think that spread is going to be like a pick 'em, and that game could go either way. But like, do I think they're overrated from a college football playoff perspective? Maybe, but from a tough USC opponent perspective, absolutely not. That's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if they're a top 15 kind of team, but we'll see. We'll see if they are. Bill had a comment from YouTube. Do you ever think the returning offensive line just improved if they beat out the transfers? Also, they got the best 5 offensive line starters, and that's what you want. You get the best offensive line starting. That's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, O'Connor certainly got better, and that's why, he just straight up beat out Reed, so that's a big thing. And yeah, this is the best 5. I think the concerning thing is this is the best 5. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of where I'm at with this. You would hope to maybe have a better 5, but we've beaten this topic to death.
Yeah.
Another one?
Another super chat. Eddie. Only Natties is on my ignore list. Okay, so that's from the P. So yeah, if you don't like a certain poster on the Peristyle, then you could put them on ignore. And Eddie apparently does that. Eddie, you actually left us a voicemail for this show, but I think you meant it for the Podcast of Champions, which I'm doing live a little bit later today. But one, it was way too long, but I'll talk about it on the Podcast of Champions. But yeah, he left it like in the wrong spot. He loves leaving voicemails, so that's like kind of his thing. Thack, will Rob Ryan be in the booth or on the field this year? I haven't heard either way. I'm assuming he's a field guy, but
we should have asked Riley that. Last year, Heward was was up in the booth, I think, and was Entz. I don't remember, but Lynn's
I think Entz might have been in the booth.
Yeah, so there's typically how Riley does it is one coach on either side will be up in the booth. I'm not totally sure who it will be on the defensive side this year, so maybe Danton Lynn can answer that. But I bet he'll say, just ask Lincoln, don't ask me.
And he also wants to know over under 4.5 penalties for the game for USC.
I think first game of the year.
Yeah,
over.
I'm going to go over also. Just there's going to be some mistakes and just some stupid penalties probably. But if not, that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
Like if you can keep it clean.
The last couple of years, I was looking at some stat stuff. USC's penalties were way up. If they're under 4.5 in the first game, that would be significant.
Yeah. And then one last one. It looks like Daniel. Question: Thanos okay? We talked about this earlier, but yeah.
Might not play that first game, but overall, yes, okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. Cool. Well, there's a lot of questions. We had a lot of people in the chat chiming in, and thanks for the super chats, and thanks for all the questions and everything. You ready, Connor?
I think so.
We're going to be in the Coliseum again. talking about USC football, watching an actual game. It's been a long time coming. We're going to be back Thursday night previewing USC and Missouri State. We'll have India Auto in studio, Connor and myself, Thursday night at 7 p.m. I might have the back end of one of my fantasy drafts going on, so maybe I'll let those guys carry the beginning of the show. We'll do live calls. So if you want to do that, you want to call in. But Thursday evening at 7 p.m. I think there's some college football starting this Thursday too, right? We might have to have it up on the TV while we're recording, and then we'll be back in the Coliseum, and we'll do a Sunday night show recapping the game. So we'll have Riley Sager will be back, if you remember her. And we'll be back. I think it'll be you, me, and Riley for the Sunday show, unless Chris wants to come in for any of those. But,
I don't think he wants to come in this first week, but
okay,
maybe here or there he can fill in.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it. It was a lot of fun. I survived. I'm getting a little feel a little, I was just lying on the couch most of the day yesterday, popping Tylenol to try to keep my fever down and stuff, but feel all right. Made it through. I wasn't sure if it was going to be, but I'm okay. I don't think I'm getting Connor sick or anything, which is good. But we're ready. I needed to be healthy heading into this first game, Connor, so I think I'm good. I think we survived this. I think we're ready. But I'm going to wrap it up. For Connor Morrissette, I am Ryan Abraham. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will talk to you next time.